بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Continuing the discourse that we had on Nahj al-Balagha since a few years ago. And we start from today a different part, a different section of Nahj al-Balagha, which is about the letter, the famous letter of Imam alayhi salam to his close companion Malik al-Ashtar. So we all heard scholars talking about the importance of Nahj al-Balagha. Some saying that after Quran, Nahj al-Balagha is the heart of religious knowledge, at least from the perspective of Shia school of thought, is the heart of understanding what faith is about, what divine revelation is about, is the best match, the best way to understand Quran, is the true interpretations of many teachings of Quran. You see them manifested in Nahj al-Balagha. And then when you look at Nahj al-Balagha, although it's difficult to do so, if we are going to make it difficult to have a cherry-picking approach in Nahj al-Balagha, but there are certain letters, certain sermons that they have been highlighted as representing the highest peak of wisdom Ali alayhi salam presents Nahj al-Balagha. And this letter to Malik Ashtar, which is understood to be a guide and a very profound instruction of how to maintain a just principles of a just government. And considering the need that we have in our time, considering all what's going on with politics these days, in the name of religion or in the name of the other things, in the name of the human values, but when we look at it, when we look at the heart of it, we see it following and we see it inclining towards a different path. So it makes it imperative, it makes it even more important to take in our mind, to keep in our mind the teachings of Ali alayhi salam, which represent the best interpretation of the Islamic perspective to politics, to governance, to the how to manage the relationship within a society, within the community, through the rule. I'm planning to dedicate the first or the two sessions of our talk to some introduction, which I see them necessary. I see that introduction necessary to better understand, better grasp the profound teachings of Ali alayhi salam in this letter. We need, for example, to pay a careful attention to the historical context within which this letter has been issued. We cannot properly appreciate this letter unless we know the circumstances in which Imam appointed Malik as the governor of Egypt and gave him this letter as the guideline for to how to rule the people. As I will explain later, when we reflect on historical context, we realize that Imam took a different path than what usual rules they do in similar situations. So this letter contrasts clearly with a similar, so it is a letter that could be written for at the time, for example, by the king of Persia or by, for example, by the emperor of Rome. If they were going to write that letter in that historical circumstances, and that what means for us is that Ali alayhi salam's focus in rule is on different matters different than usually what we know as politics focus on it. So one aspect that I will talk in the introduction into the first or two sessions that I'm presenting in introduction would be about the historical context of the letter. We then need to also reflect, need to also pay attention to a key person that is involved in this letter, person no other than Malik al-Ashtar, who is the recipient of the letter. As I will discuss it later, it matters when we are reading a hadith, we are reading a report, even when we are reading Quran, to understand carefully who is the addressee here, who are the people, who is the person that they are receiving, they are the addressee of this report, this hadith, this verse of Quran. Because it is narrated from the Prophet, peace be upon him, it is narrated that إِنَّا مَعَاشِرُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ أُمِرْنَا أَن نُكَلِّمَ النَّاسَ عَلَى قَدْرِ عُقُولِهِمْ. It is one of the responsibilities of the Prophet, and on the same line of the Imams alayhi salam, to talk to the people to the level of their understanding, to their capacity. The higher the capacity, the more enriched you will find Imam's teachings when we have a hadith that he says something to one of his companions, a hadith that addresses Hisham ibn al-Hakam, a hadith that addresses, for example, Zurarat ibn A'yun. The content of hadith is much different than when the hadith addresses someone in a lower level of faith or understanding. That even if the person asks the same question. So it is also important to know who is Malik, then to better understand why Imam gives so detailed and high level of instruction to Malik Ashtar. The third point that we also need to highlight is the importance of the letter, this specific letter. So we talked about the importance of Nahj al-Balagha as the second after Quran, but the importance of this letter to Malik Ashtar in shaping the ideology, the political ideology of Shia Islam. So that's also very important to look at what makes this letter distinguished than the other documents on the same topic. And finally, I will, before entering in details in discussing the letter, I will give an overall overview of the main themes discussed in the letter. So these 4 topics will be what I'm going to address in my introduction to Imam Ali alayhi salam's letter and advice to Malik Ashtar. So starting from the historical context, it is something that I see it to some extent neglected in many commentaries written on the letter. most commentaries, they just start by mentioning that this is a letter that Ali alayhi salam wrote to Malik al-Ashtar when he appointed him as a governor for Egypt, and then they start to go to the letter or the importance of the letter, but not much talking, not much elaborating on the historical context. You see much more elaboration in early works like the commentary of uh, Ibn Abdul Hadid, but not in the later works. And again, it's very important to pay attention to this historical context. The time that Ali alayhi salam appointed Malik as the governor of Egypt was a very dire situation, a very important and one of the most complicated periods of the rule of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali alayhi salam. Very difficult time during his rule. So you see that, so it is the time that leads to, so after the martyrdom of Malik, it is the time that leads to Muawiyah conquering Egypt. So when Ali alayhi salam took the rule, Egypt was part of the Ali alayhi salam's rule, but it was lost to Muawiyah. And this event happened into some people questioning some decisions that Ali alayhi salam made, specifically about appointing his governors in Egypt. And what I'm going to present will address those questions, those ambiguities. I'm hoping to clarify. So how was the situation at the time, and why Imam changed 3 governors in about 2 years, and why to pick, for example, Qais ibn Sa'd, why to pick Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr later, and why to later on give the rule to Malik al-Ashtar. What was going on at the time? Egypt was close to Syria, to the center of power of Muawiyah. It was considered both a threat and opportunity for Muawiyah. It was a threat because it was close to Syria, close to the rule of Muawiyah, but was under the influence and the rule of Ali. So it could pose an imminent threat to Muawiyah's rule. At the same time, it was seen by Muawiyah as potential opportunity for him, because Egypt was a big country, which means there was a huge amount of tax being collected there, kharaj. And also, when a country is huge, it means that you can take a huge army from it, enlist huge number of people, which was potentially a very significant contribution to Muawiyah's military power. So it was both a threat and a potential opportunity for Muawiyah. And Ali alayhi salam was fully aware of that. He knew that Muawiyah has his eyes set on Egypt. And he knew that eventually Muawiyah would attempt to take over Egypt. At the same time, there was another problem that was making the situation more difficult for Ali alayhi salam when it comes to the Egypt, that there were a huge number of the population, not necessarily the majority, but a huge number of the population in Egypt who were still considered themselves loyal to Osman, and they were brainwashed to believe that Ali is responsible for the killing of Osman. That's what Muawiyah ensured to happen. Their seeing themselves loyal to Osman and seeing Muawiyah as the one who rose the flag to avenge Osman. And this was meaning for Ali alayhi salam, that it means that at the time Egypt had a very delicate situation because Muawiyah was setting his eyes on it. Muawiyah was plotting to take over it, and there were people inside, huge number of people who were ready to answer the call of Muawiyah. So when this is the case, Ali alayhi salam took necessary measures to protect Egypt against Muawiyah's invasion. How? First, he knew that it is very significant, very important and crucial to appoint a governor who would be able to stand against Muawiyah. Because he's not fighting against just a simple person. He's fighting, he's standing against a formidable foe, a fox like Muawiyah, who is master of all kind of deceptions. So first, Ali alayhi salam appoints, when he took the rule, he appoints Qais ibn Sa'd as the governor of Egypt. Qais was one of the most renowned political figures in early Islam, and he was being known for his wisdom and being smart in politics and knowing how to control people. And Ali alayhi salam saw these characteristics in him and saw him fitting to protect Egypt against Muawiyah. So he appointed Qais ibn Sa'd as the governor of Egypt. However, what happened is that Qais, despite what Ali alayhi salam advised him, he started somehow going easy and somehow getting aligned with those people loyal to Osman and Muawiyah living in Egypt, and they didn't pledge allegiance to Ali. They didn't do bay'ah. So there is a potential threat, insider threat, potential possibilities for revolt, uprising from the people who do not feel any obligation to be loyal to the government. Because in the Arab culture at the time, bay'ah, pledging allegiance, was one of the most morally binding social contracts. When someone pledges allegiance to a ruler, in Arab culture at the time, it was like the matter of life and death. It was so that to break that allegiance was the most despicable thing for Arab at the time. So it was expected from Qais to call upon those people and to ask them to join to confirm the legitimacy of the Ali alayhi salam's rule. However, Qais, because of his own methods in ruling, he refrained from doing this. And Imam knew that situation is very diligent, requires someone who can stand fiercely to cut any kind of greed, to cut any kind of developing mentality or thought of betraying the government. by those people who were not loyal. And Qais was not apparently the guy to do that. So when Imam alayhi salam appointed him to go for Egypt, in his advice, Imam told him, for example, so all the moral advices, how to treat people, how to be kind to them, how to maintain justice. But Imam also advised him to take a big army with him to Egypt, just to showcase the power and the might of the rule. So the people, those people who were still loyal to Uthman, just discard any thought of uprising or, for example, unrest later on. However, Qais didn't follow. He only entered the Egypt with only 7 of his companions. So there are different reasons mentioned in the historical account. I don't want to enter in detail. And at the same time, there were attempts by Muawiyah to attract and to bring Qais to his own camp. Muawiyah did a lot, plotting, so promising everything to Qais, but Qais did not waver. However, it is not unlikely to say that Ali was concerned that Muawiyah, so again, being such a fox, being a master of deception, could eventually influence Qais. So then Imam alayhi decided that I need someone who can right now make a strong, solid stance against those people who are still loyal to Uthman, who are potential threat to society, and asking them to pledge their allegiance to Ali alayhi salam. So to rest assured that no internal conflict is going to distract the rule from an external threat like Muawiyah. And it is also seen from the, for example, the statements that we have from Ali alayhi salam. For example, when Ali alayhi salam wanted to appoint Malik al-Ashtar later on as the governor. So there are statements narrated from Ali alayhi salam that he praised both Malik al-Ashtar and Hashim ibn Utbah as the ones who they can rule over Egypt. However, Imam picks Malik over Hashim. Why? Because Imam knew that he wants an experienced and excellent military commander as well, not only just a politician, someone who also knows how to protect the country against a military camp, a military attempt by Muawiyah. So Imam decides to appoint Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, who was his stepson and who was known as a very brave and devoted and loyal to Ali alayhi salam. So it was around the midst of the 36th after Hijrah that Imam appointed Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr to take the rule, to become the government of Egypt instead of Qais ibn Sa'd. So Muhammad was someone that, as Imam expected, so the historical account, they say that just after 1 month when he took the rule, he called upon his opposition who were hesitating still to pledge allegiance to Ali alayhi salam. He called upon them and said, يا هؤلاء إما أن تدخلوا في طاعتنا أو إما أن تخرجوا من بلادنا. It's your choice. Either you pledge allegiance to Ali, so we know that you are with us. If not, we are not going to kill you, we are not going to suppress you, but you have to leave this land, this territory. Go somewhere. So if you are still, for example, loyal to Muawiyah, why not go to Syria? So you have to make a choice. So we can control the safety, the security of the country. We cannot have you here while your heart is with someone else, your sword with someone else, and you are a potential threat to the community. So Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr tried to uh, manage the situation. And at the same time, he was someone loved by the Egyptians. So even we have in some of the historical accounts that the people who came from the Egypt, so if you know about the revolution that led to the killing of Osman, it was after a congregation of the people, a group of people coming from Egypt complaining to Osman about what his government was doing there. So the Osman assures them that I'm going to address the matter, however, sends a letter that to the government of Egypt informing him of what these people said and instructing him to suppress them. But the uh, messenger was caught later, and it actually led to the uprising against Osman. But one of the requests of the Egyptian delegation who came to Osman was to uh, appoint Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr instead of Abdullah ibn Abi Sar, who was the governor at the time. So even before the rule of Ali salam, Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was loved by Egyptians. So Ali salam, in picking Muhammad, he knew that he's picking someone whose people who are content with him, and he is someone who will take a stronger stance against those loyal to Muawiyah in Egypt. And Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was successful for a year, more than a year of his rule, until it came to the time of the uh, Battle of Siffin, which was uh, in year 63, 67, if not mistaken. So what happened after the Battle of Siffin, and you know about the incident of Hakamiyyah. So unfortunately, the betrayal of some people in the camp of Ali alayhi salam, who stopped Ali alayhi salam from being victorious over Muawiyah and finishing that uh, uh, territory. So unfortunately, some were deceived in the event of Hakamiyyah, and it led finally to a victory for Muawiyah after Abu Musa Ash'ari announced Muawiyah as the ruler. So what happened at the time, this event this event led to empowering Muawiyah. So the incident of Siffin led to the people of Syria, of Sham, to pledge allegiance to Muawiyah after that. And then Muawiyah found the situation perfect for his military campaign against Egypt. It was at that time that Imam alayhi salam knew that a war is going to break out. He knew that Muawiyah would focus all his power, his might, to take over Egypt. He appointed Amr al-As, his most trusted person, to lead the army. And Imam knew that Muawiyah will try to take over Egypt. So, and considering the threat from the Muawiyah and considering the unrest, still there were people never loyal to Muawiyah in Egypt, so there was internal turmoil because of those people. Ali alayhi salam knew that he needs someone more experienced than Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. He needs an excellent military leader who can change the situation, who would inflict fear in the heart of Muawiyah and his army. And no one was more suitable than Malik al-Ashtar. Malik was known for his military adventures. Malik was known for his planning, military planning, for his loyalty to Ali alayhi salam, and his victories as the commander of Ali alayhi salam's army. So Ali alayhi salam appointed Malik, and it was the reason for which Muawiyah plotted against Malik and killed him before reaching Egypt, because Muawiyah also knew that if Malik takes to and gets to Egypt, it would be likely impossible for him to conquer Egypt. So you see that Imam alayhi salam's decisions to appoint Qais ibn Sa'd and then to replace him with Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr and then replace him with Malik al-Ashtar in less than 2 years was in response to the call of his time, because the situation changed. Before the Siffin, Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was able to rule the Egypt, but after the Siffin and after Muawiyah was empowered and directed and shifted his focus on Egypt, Ali al-Salam knew that Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr is not anymore the best candidate to deter the threat of the Muawiyah. So he appointed Malik al-Ashtar. At the same time, Ali knew that he needs to repel the military threat of the Muawiyah with a military campaign from his side also to support Egypt, because he knew that the Egypt has not yet a proper army, to stand against Muawiyah. So Ali alayhi salam, his main, so in Siffin, Ali alayhi salam tried to finish and make sure that the threat to the community, the Muslim community, would be finished in Siffin. However, the betrayal of his companions led to what we all know. After Ali alayhi salam returned from Siffin, he told his companions that our main target is Syria, is Sham, and we don't have time to take a break. We need to go out. We need to right now, before it becomes more severe. We have to stand against Muawiyah. But then you see that those ignorance, those people who thought that they are more religious than Ali, who know Islam better than Ali, those Khawarij, those people who thought Ali alayhi salam to be deviated from the faith, the ones responsible for the crisis in Siffin, 4,000 of them, they gathered outside of the Kufa. So when Imam alayhi salam was going to start his campaign towards Syria, he saw these people are gathering here. So it was an imminent threat. If Imam alayhi salam was going to leave Kufa without dealing with them, that would be that could lead to a catastrophe. So Imam alayhi salam had to deal with them first. When Imam alayhi salam became victorious after the war of Nahrawan, the battle of Nahrawan, he asked his companions to right away to march for Syria or to march towards Egypt to deter the threat of the Muawiyah. However, unfortunately, again, you see this hesitance, you see this betrayal from his companions, saying that we are tired, we need to take a break, let us to have a break. So Ali alayhi salam, when he saw there is no other choice, he told them that no problem, I stay here in Nukhayla, it was a camp close to the Kufa, for a week. So you go back home, take a rest, and return to us. So we can march towards Syria. However, these people, they left the camp, and they didn't return. Ali alayhi salam left with only, some historical I can say, with only 50 soldiers, 50 companions around him. So this betrayal led to Ali alayhi salam failing to raise an army to support Egypt. And Muawiyah used this opportunity. He attacked Egypt with 6,000 army. So Amr al-As led an army of 6,000, supported by an army of the hypocrites, the internal, who's loyal to Osman from the Egypt, an army of 10,000, adding to them, and Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr only had 2,000 army. And the betrayal of, again, what happened in Siffin occurred again, the betrayal of the companions of Ali alayhi salam and not following him led to an unfair battle. 2,000 soldiers of Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr against 16 or up to 20,000 army of the Ottoman of the Amr al-As, combined with those enemies from the Egypt themselves, which led to the massacre and the killing of Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. And you see Ali alayhi salam, he delivered a lecture, a sermon, after the martyrdom of Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, blaming his companions. ألا إن مصر قد افتتحها الفجرة أولو الجور والظلم الذين صدوا عن سبيل الله وبغوا الإسلام عوجا. See what happened. Egypt fall in the hands of Muawiyah, someone like Muawiyah, who doesn't care for anything. فأنتم لا يدرك بكم الثأر ولا تنقض بكم الأوتار. دعوتكم إلى غياث إخوانكم منذ بضع وخمسين ليلة. And you people, you cannot be trusted to defend the faith. I'm insisting you for more than 50 few nights and asking you to calling you to help your brothers and sisters in Egypt. And you hesitated, and neglected the opportunity until happened what must not have been happened. So this is the situation, this is the circumstances. So you see that the historical circumstances at the time that Ali alayhi salam appoints Malik al-Ashtar is a very important and very crucial time for the rule of Ali alayhi salam. And this tells a lot about Ali alayhi salam's view of politics when you take into account this historical context and put it next to his teachings in the letter, the advice he gives to Malik al-Ashtar. He tells a lot about what Ali alayhi salam focuses on in his rule. And inshallah, we will discuss that later on when we are going over the letter. So the next session, inshallah, I will talk about 3 other points I mentioned about Malik al-Ashtar himself, about the importance of the letter when it comes to shaping the Shia political ideology, if properly derived from the instruction of Ali alayhi salam. And finally, talking about some main points, main themes in the letter of Ali alayhi salam, which we are going to, inshallah, to cover them later after. So from the 3rd session onward, to cover them in detail in our lectures and our comments on the letter of Ali alayhi salam to Malik al-Ashtar, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the insight, the understanding, the tawfiq, the blessing to benefit from the school of Ahlul Bayt and benefit from the teachings of Ali alayhi salam, and to be enriched from the wisdom that they provided for us. Here's the site, as-salawat.